Welcome to episode 139 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories, their way, and in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50, and your host for today's show. Today's guest is Barbara Alpher, who started a brand new adventure at age 72 when she sold her home, bought an Airstream, and hit the road as a full-time RVer and work camper. A retired psychotherapist and domestic violence counselor, Barbara decided she no longer wanted to be surrounded by stuff that didn't matter. Instead, she wanted to serve others, see the country, and live a life guided by intuition and purpose. Here are a few key takeaways from our conversation. First, you're never too old to start over. Barbara had never towed a trailer or camped in an RV before, but she learned quickly and spent 12 years traveling the country alone with confidence and joy. Second, purpose comes from contribution. Volunteering at state parks, wildlife refuges, and Army Corps of Engineer campgrounds gave her a deep sense of meaning and connection. Third, trust your intuition. Barbara believes that inner guidance, or knowing, is what opens doors to life's most fulfilling experiences. Fourth, you can attain healing through proper lifestyle. After surviving breast cancer, she chose a whole food, plant-based diet instead of undergoing chemotherapy, and now helps others pursue wellness naturally. Finally, gratitude is important in preserving a legacy. In her mid-80s, Barbara continues to coach others, run her Shaklee business, and savor time with her grandson while remaining grateful for each new day. Barbara's journey shows how courage, curiosity, and faith in life's timing can lead to unexpected freedom and joy no matter what your age. To tell us more about what gives her life meaning and purpose in her 80s, please welcome Barbara Alpher to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Barbara. I really appreciate the time. I love your story because at your age, you abandoned everything and got an RV. What prompted you to do that?
Interestingly, I was living in Las Cruces, New Mexico. My mother and I had lived together for the last 10 years of her life. She had passed on. I had all of her stuff, my stuff. And one day I was walking through the living room. I was the only one left at home by this time. And I suddenly thought, my God, I am sitting here being custodian to stuff I don't even care about anymore. And just with that thought, as the universe works and synergy works, that week I met someone who was work camping. And I thought, wow, I got on the internet. This was in August. What year? 2012. In August. And I got on the internet, realized in October there was a rendezvous in Heber Springs, Arkansas. And I immediately signed up. I called, found a little, what was it? Not bed and breakfast, but a motel of some kind. It was a neat little place. I got a room, in other words, immediately. It was all set up to go in October as a dreamer. Not only a dreamer, I had camped with nothing but a tent, and I had never pulled anything in my life. So I went to that rendezvous. By the end of the 3 days, I knew that this was for me. This was what I was going to do. Went back to Las Cruces, worked on my house. It took me until March to get everything ready. Put it on the market, and within 2 days it sold. And that was when the market was terrible.
That's a sign then that you're meant to be on the road.
That's right.
How old were you at that time?
72.
72 and just starting RVing, and you'd never RV'd at all at that point. You didn't even know.
I actually had found an Airstream camper that I wanted, which was north of Fort Worth. So the first time I pulled anything was pulling that camper through Fort Worth.
It's
Airstream, beautiful little camper, exactly what I had looked for. Oh, and the reason I felt confident doing it, I took a woman with me who at the time was 87. She's now in her late 90s and still going strong. She had pulled everything. She had been the driver in her family from a kid on the farm through her marriage. She was a fantastic coach. And she coached me on and off the interstates and into gas stations and into an RV place for the night and hooking up and unhooking. And when we got back to Las Cruces, a couple of weeks later, we went up in the mountains together, pulling the Airstream and camped for the weekend, and again went through everything. So by the time on the road, I felt confident that I could do it, obviously, and no practice to speak of. But off I went. And 12 years later, I finally ended that particular part of my life.
And you pulled off and settled in Illinois. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, super. I love that story. 72 years of age to start RVing, to learn how to hook up an RV, to tow it, to maintain all the things that are in it, and et cetera, that goes on. I find that absolutely remarkable. But
I loved it. I know that I could be a contribution. That was my whole, that's what I put on my website for the Work Camper News, by the way. My idea was to be a contribution wherever I went.
Could you tell everybody what a work camper is? Some people might not be familiar with that.
Oh, great. A work camper is someone who volunteers, or you can get paid. I got paid one Christmas rush when I worked at Amazon.com. That was a hoot. But mostly I volunteered in exchange for a full hookup. Often there were other perks that went with it, which was really nice, and I appreciated. But the idea for me was to work 3 or 4 months in a place and then move on. I wanted to see the United States. And I did that, sticking with that schedule and working all different kinds of places, state parks, national parks, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers sites, independent campgrounds, all kinds of places, and Amazon, like I said. And then when COVID hit, that sort of changed things. Do you want me to go into that?
Sure.
What a work camper is? Just volunteering in whatever the place needs. And if you fit in what they need, you've got a great site.
That's great. Yeah, no, COVID changed the lives for a lot of people. And it really opened the door for many people to discover what RVing was, because everything was closed. Yet they could get in their RV and go travel. And so everybody flocked to RV dealerships to buy RVs during COVID. And they ran out of product and the prices went up and all that other kind of stuff. But you were already a veteran by that point.
That's when I should have sold my Airstream.
That's right. How long was your Airstream?
25 feet. 22 feet inside, because 3 feet is the axle, the apron on the front, not the axle, the apron. Yeah. And it was 8 feet wide. It felt roomy.
For a single person, it would. You didn't have any pets or anything like that with you?
Cats. They were with me for a few years. One finally died at age 18 and one at age 19.
Oh, my.
I had no pets, but they were good company.
Oh, that's fun. How many states did you visit during your journey?
Oh, gosh. The only two, let's see. No, actually, the only one that I've never been in as a person is North Dakota. On my map that I had for work camping, I only put the states on there if I at least stayed overnight in that state. Very often for a week, just traveling or whatever, or 3 or 4 months working. It was only the ones on the West Coast and New England that I didn't actually work camp in.
Okay. So you've been through a whole bunch of them.
Oh, yeah.
What were your favorite states?
Actually, I'm still legally a South Dakota resident until I get everything changed over. I just moved into this condo this last week. So South Dakota was so good to me, and I wanted to work in that state. I worked at Custer State Park in the Black Hills, and that was one of my favorite summers. I absolutely loved that place. And Badger Clark was the poet laureate, the first poet laureate of South Dakota. The cabin that he built was in that state park, and that's where I loved volunteering, was in his cabin. So that was one of my favorites. The other favorite was way up in the tippy top of Wisconsin. the Apostle Islands National Lake Shore. I worked at the Northern Great Lakes Visitor Center right on Chequamegon Bay on Lake Superior. And that was a fantastic summer. I loved Wisconsin and that whole area.
I can imagine.
The third favorite would be the last one I was at, which was a wildlife refuge. Buenos Aires National Wildlife Refuge. Nothing to do with Argentina. Buenos Aires just means good winds. In southern Arizona, right down on the Mexican border. And I spent a good amount of time there. I was there when COVID hit. So a group of us kept coming back because they had almost no staff. And we basically, for 2 years, COVID in the next year, we were the only people on the refuge. And I ran the visitor center, which I continued for 5 years, actually, 3 winters. And then the last 2 years, I was there full time due to a different story. But that area is just amazing. I really loved that area.
The desert area, the Sonoran Desert. Yes. Yeah. That sounds like you had a variety of experiences while you were on the road. I know that Custer State Park is one of my favorites. It's a hidden gem. A lot of people miss it when they go to South Dakota. And what a great opportunity to go in there. If I'm not mistaken, they have a road through that park that takes people to Mount Rushmore. And there are several opportunities to view Mount Rushmore through tunnels and these tree canopies, and to see the buffalo roaming around. When you were over there, did you ever have buffalo in your campground?
Did I ever? Frequently. And actually, you have a picture of one of those times that you used in an article in the Work Camper News.
That's right. Super. And
actually, let me just put it in here. My favorites, by the way, the northern Wisconsin, the Custer State Park, and another one I should have mentioned is Libby Dam, a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers site in northwestern Montana. The sites that I liked best were all of the ones that people didn't know about because they weren't on the way to anywhere. Like the refuge is not on the way to anywhere. Libby Dam, all of those places. Libby Dam people were crowded into Glacier National Park and Yellowstone National Park, and here was Libby Dam. Gorgeous country, gorgeous. But it wasn't on the way to anywhere. And so not a whole crowd of people came there. It was fantastic.
I can imagine that would be very peaceful and beautiful to be in. I know that those U.S. Army Corps of Engineer parks are phenomenal. They have big sites, aren't very crowded at all. And you're absolutely right. People miss some of this most spectacular scenery by going to the big tourist places that are crowded, bumper to bumper, packed with people. And these beautiful, relaxing experiences await them just a couple miles away. And some of these
are those campers.
So most
for months.
So most of the jobs that you did were volunteer in nature?
Yes, almost.
Okay. So you must have had a good pension, Social Security to help support you on this journey? No?
I had Social Security.
Okay.
I had my Shaklee business. I had built that up when I wanted to leave New Jersey in the 90s. I built it up to equal my agency pay. Shaklee has food supplements, cleaning products, skin care, personal care, things. I had used those products. I signed up initially in January of 1980, that many years ago. So I knew the products. People helped me, and I built up a business to equal my agency pay so I could move out to Arizona. Actually, I ended up in Las Cruces. I was thinking of Arizona at the time, but Las Cruces I loved. And it worked.
So when you say
that kept me on the road as well.
When you say agency pay, what did you do for a living before you got into the RV?
I was a psychoanalytic psychotherapist.
Okay.
And what I did, at part-time, I had a private practice, but I always worked in agencies as well. And I worked in domestic violence agencies.
Ooh, that would be a hard one.
It was interesting and very satisfying and very rewarding. You stayed from the 50s when you initially were saying, I told you should go from the 70s because I was so darn old. But from the 50s, the biggest thing that was wonderful at that time, I started a fundraiser for the agency where I was working at the time where the heck was I? In New Jersey, in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And that funded a children's program for many years, long after I had left, called ELVES, Empower the Littlest Victims to Emerge Strong.
Oh.
And so that I felt like I had done something really worthwhile there. That was a nice thing.
That has to be rewarding for you. And talk about legacy. It's something that you put your heart and your passion and your experience and your talents and all of your gifts into developing, and it survived you, which is what so many people wish they could do with their lives, is have something that would survive them. And that's one of the reasons why you came off the road, I understand, is because you have a little legacy of your own now that you're trying to develop a relationship with.
I'm the great-grandparent age, but I had my first grandchild, the little boy Jack, who is 3 years old. I was planning to go on the road again this summer, and then I thought, I'm going to miss this little boy totally. He's 3 years old. If I don't get to know him now, I'm going to feel very bad that I missed the opportunities. So I sold the Airstream. It just sold a couple of days ago, and got a condo in Evanston, right near their house. And I really feel like it was the right thing and worth it to do, because that little boy is delightful, and I'm getting to know him.
That is correct. Yes, America could solve its energy problems, forget solar, forget nuclear, if they could ever tap into the energy of 3-year-old boys. They would be able to power the rest of the country for everything they ever needed.
You know that too, probably.
Well, that's right. That must have been bittersweet then, to sell your Airstream, since it had been such a big part of your life for a long time.
It was a little more difficult than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
That's another thing, by the way, though, that people should know if they're interested in work camping. I did a lot of research up front, all kinds of just going to RV shows and on the web and everything, and found out the length that would probably be best for me, the type of camper that I wanted. And it worked out so that while other people constantly talked of upsizing and downsizing, and I had the same truck and the same RV, the same camper for the entire 12 years I was on the road, and it was perfect.
That is neat. You're very fortunate to do that. Did you run into any challenges on the road as a single woman?
People kept saying that. In fact, in the beginning, they'd say, "Are you taking a gun?" And I thought, if I had a gun, I'd be the one in danger. No, I didn't take a gun. And I didn't have problems like that. It's just, I knew what I was doing. I knew where I was going. I was confident. I'm guessing I never came across as a victim type person.
Mm-hmm.
I had hitchhiked all through Europe and the Middle East when I was a young person. I've been doing this for a long time. It didn't have problems like that.
So
it was fun.
Do you ever have any breakdowns with the RV?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of those. And again, it's one of those things with synergy. People who showed up were the people who were able to help me, and I got through them with a little problem. I feel very grateful for every day of my life, by the way.
Okay. So when you ran into problems where things would break on the RV, you were able to get that fixed as a general rule relatively quickly?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. What rewards did you receive from all of this?
All kinds of rewards. Meeting wonderful people, working in places where, to me, the mission that they had, like with the places we mentioned that are back area type places, people doing wonderful work. And I learned to appreciate how many people in this country are just giving of themselves. I don't even know how to say it all. There's so much good going on in this country, and all we hear on the news is terrible. There's so much good. It's just astounding. to me. The people are just not plugging into that and going with it.
That's a very good observation. I wonder if it has to do with the fact that you hung out in places where people were volunteering, so they were always giving of themselves rather than looking out for what's in it for me.
That, but also the people that we were volunteering for were very generous. They knew we were giving our time. And though they couldn't afford, most of them couldn't afford to be hiring all of these people to run the place. So they did everything they could to make our lives fun and interesting. And it was a two-way street. It was not just us work campers giving. It went both ways.
I've heard that a lot of people who have been volunteering as work campers or even just volunteering around the community find that the people and the places that they are volunteering at are very appreciative of their efforts. And that's neat to be able to do that. It's got to be rewarding.
You summed it up nicely. That's really what I was trying to get at.
Super. If you had to turn the clock back at all, would you do anything differently?
Sometimes I've thought of that. Are you talking about just with the work camping or with life in general?
With life in general and in work camping, whichever.
Okay. I guess the thing that I would do differently, it's not differently. It's actually just being more aware, alert, and awake to what's going on. The things that worked out best were when I responded to an inner knowing and an inner sense of this is for me. This is what I want to do. And I would go with it. That's how I developed the funding for the children's program. That's how I got into work camping. That's why my house got sold so quickly. Just all kinds of things. Whenever that happened, I was following my intuitions. When you ask if I would do anything differently, I would be even more alert to that. I actually learned that at age 7 for the first time, and again later as a young adult, but it took me a while to learn what had happened, what was going on. And when I finally keyed into the fact that people talk about trying to change their lives with positive thinking, which I'm not downplaying. Norman Vincent Peale was a terrific person who started that, and that's great. But what I finally learned was it's not possible to talk these things into being. It has to come from that inner knowing that I mentioned. When that comes first, and then we go with it, when I went with it, that's when things were absolutely terrific. And when I just wouldn't have wanted to change anything in those experiences.
I love that. Know that many of us have this feeling in ourselves that we need to be doing something specific. And we feel that often young in our teens and maybe early 20s. And yet we tamp that down to do things that are more practical. And
it's what we're telling you should do.
Exactly. To appease other people. It might be parents. It might be friends. I don't know, a spouse, whatever the case might be. But that smoldering never goes away. That burning desire to do whatever it is always remains there. And it's so neat to be able to do that once you turn 50 and get beyond that. And you have the resources. Yes. It's easier, because especially as a single person, you really lived life to the full because you were there by yourself, but you were serving other people.
That's the key, by the way, by myself. I realized at one point that I did best when I did things by myself. I felt anyway, I was too suggestible. If people around me, if I was getting bombarded with information or whatever, I don't know how to describe that, but I was best being on my own.
Okay. And you weren't afraid to do that?
No, in fact, I much preferred it. And it made life easier. Like when I was traveling, whether hitchhiking or work camping, I met a lot more people because I was by myself. I tended to connect with people. One of the things that I liked doing, one of the reasons I chose work camping, to spend 3 or 4 months in an area. I had library cards all the way across the country because libraries were a wonderful place to meet people and get to know what was going on in that area. So I would check in there, get my books. Couldn't carry books in the camper, so I made use of libraries and just got to know a few people locally. It was a wonderful way to get to know an area, besides taking all of the beautiful travel routes through there too. I did that obviously, but it was people that I got attracted to. And then I did that everywhere I went.
I would never have thought of connecting at libraries when you're traveling around the country, but you're right. That's staffed by local people who know the local area very well, and they can tell you about things to do and places to go, people to see or to meet that others would never understand because they are crowded in other areas.
Libraries and independent coffee shops.
Super. So you traveled the country and fueled yourself on independent coffee shops. Were you looking for the perfect mocha?
No, actually, what I zeroed in on was what's called an Americana, because coffee can vary drastically from place to place, but Americanas tend to be really good and the same no matter where I went. So that was my caffeine of choice.
What's in an Americana? I don't think I've ever heard of that.
It's espresso and hot water.
Okay. What kind of advice would you give to people over 50 who are struggling with things to do to give their life more meaning or passion?
I'd go right back to listen to your intuitions, watch, and when you feel that inner knowing, listen to it, pay attention to it, because that's what's going to make your life satisfying and whole and really worth living.
That's neat. Did you make any friends on the road when you were out there for so long?
Yes, I'm still in touch with a couple of them.
Okay.
I'm in touch with a huge number of people, but I met loads of people that I really liked. And fellow work campers were among them also.
I love work camping for the opportunity to tour the country and to spend a couple of months in a particular region, really get to know it well and understand the culture, experience all the delicious foods and things like that, and then move on to greater adventures. Are you going to miss it?
Yes and no. I definitely will miss seeing the country, but I can travel different places. I can get a little bit of that, but I'm really just being here, getting to know that little boy, and I have things I can do here. I'm now certified as a whole food plant-based coach. I did that while I was working at the refuge in Arizona and online. And there's that. I am still doing my Shaklee business, which it's one of the things that plus the whole food plant-based, which kept me healthy all of these years, which is, I really am grateful. So I'll keep doing the Shaklee business and get plugged in to that again. I really had let that slide while I was on the road. Kept up with it somewhat, but not to the depth that I will now.
I understand you became very interested in health-based or plant-based foods after surviving cancer. Can you tell us that story?
Actually, it started before that, but I zeroed in on it and really got to know what was all involved because I was not doing it totally when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I had waited way too long. I already had a fairly good-sized tumor in my right breast and paid no attention to it, go figure. But started reading everything I could. So what happened was I got this is when I did the plant-based whole food certificate program, coaching program, because that really got me to zero in on exactly what I needed to do. And when I finally got referred, I had never gone to an oncologist. I got referred to a woman who was a surgeon, the breast cancer surgeon, who turned out to be really good, which I was grateful for. And when I went to her, she said to me, we'll start with chemo and radiation. I said, absolutely not. I'm not doing any of that. And then I asked her, why would you want to poison my system? Because she was going to remove, I had gone in for surgery to remove that tumor. I said, why would you want to poison my system right before a surgery? She was taken aback, but she said, okay. So we did no chemo, no radiation. I had the surgery. She did a super job. And then she said, she kept at me, you really have to talk to an oncologist. By that time, I had avoided that because I didn't want a PET scan. The idea of having radiation put in my bloodstream did not appeal to me. But I really wanted to know what was happening in my body. So I went to this very nice Indian gentleman, and he described the type of cancer that I had from looking at the records, that there would be cancer several places in my body besides that. And he outlined a program we would do after the results of the PET scan. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way I'm doing that. So I had the PET scan. I went back the next week. He came in with a strange look on his face. And he said, the PET scan shows that you have no cancer anywhere in your body. Hey. And it was a very short session, obviously. He never asked what I had been doing or anything. As we stood up to leave, he said, you are very blessed. And I said, yes, and I worked hard at it too.
And what did you do?
Excuse me?
What did you do to rid your body of cancer?
I got everything out of my body that would interfere with healing. And it's amazing how much, like, when I say I thought I had a good diet, when I looked in my cupboards, when I started that plant-based, full food, plant-based program. Oh, and Chris Ward, that I got to mention. He has crispycancer.com. And I bought, this is before anything else, I bought his program called Square One and started doing everything he recommended. He had rid himself of cancer in the past. So I started going through my cupboards and I was shocked. Even the mustard that I had, which never occurred to me to get rid of that, had sugar in it. Why would there be sugar in mustard? Frozen vegetables like Brussels sprouts or onions, anything slightly bitter, and sugar in it. It's just sugar was in everything, literally every single product. I got rid of reading ingredients simply because it was too tedious. I would look at how much fat, sodium, and sugar was in this, and that's all there. The percentage of fat, the percentage of this and that, and the percentage of fiber is critical. So anything that had added sugar, I got rid of. And almost everything had added sugar. I had to search and hunt for anything that was totally organic. Oh, and I used organic. If people can afford it, great. If they can't, they can still do a good job. If they go organic with what's called the dirty dozen, anything that has thin skins or is grown on the ground and is leafy or like greens or spongy like strawberries, all of those things absorb too much in the way of pesticides and herbicides. But bananas, melons, citrus, avocados, anything with a tight skin, you can pretty much do without the organic and still have a good product. So just there's 12 items. People can Google the dirty dozen and they'll get the list.
And those should be organic, if possible?
Those should be organic if you can possibly afford it. And most people can, because if you're going with Chris Wark's Crispy Cancer and the whole food plant-based, which his program is, you're not ordering all of the animal products that are so expensive, like beef, like steaks and things like that. So that money can go toward organic products. And when you start, it's a challenge, but when you start going whole food, what I realized was everything tastes so much better because it's real food. All of the processed stuff, the cookies and the crackers and just all of the crap that's out there that's processed, you don't realize it does not taste good because the tastes are so intense. The sweet is so intense, the sour, the salt, everything is so intense. You never really get to taste those foods. But then your system has to be retrained to be able to test the actual flavor of that fruit or that vegetable. And when that happens, suddenly I started realizing, my God, this food really tastes good that I'm making now. What I'm eating is so much better. The more I got the junk out of it, the better the food tasted. Amazing.
That is neat. I've talked to several people on this platform who have had medical practitioners tell them they needed to go through radiation and chemotherapy and all this other kind of stuff and pump up more and more prescription medications. And they finally said, no, I'm going to do my own research. And it is possible to come up with these kinds of plans like you have. And you are how old right now?
Oh, I'm halfway through my 86th year.
So you are a testimony that your advice actually works, that people can rid themselves of these kind of sugary processed foods and embrace a plant-based whole foods product or diet and live a long and fulfilling life.
And love it.
And love it.
You know, I've got a little sign on the wall in my bedroom now, and it says, get in touch with that grateful feeling every morning.
That's right.
I was doing that before somebody gave me that as a gift. So I thought, fantastic. That'll keep me remembering if I ever lose track of this.
Super.
Start each day with a grateful feeling. That's actually what the sign says.
That's excellent advice.
When you come up with a diagnosis like this, everybody and their brother starts giving you advice. And most of them have no reason to give that advice because they don't have a clue about it themselves. Some do, but very few. So you really have to start getting in touch with that inner feeling. And I knew that I could go whole food plant-based. I had been doing it gradually for years, but never totally solidly. I knew it. And I also knew that if I went the medical route, I would have more cancers because chemotherapy and radiation destroy the immune system. It allows the cancer spread. It's like there's no end to it. If you're going to end it, you have to end it yourself. You have to go whole food, plant-based, and follow the people. And there are many out there. Many. I could give you a list of books. There's so many who describe what needs to be done. And if you do it and follow it, your chances are really good. Getting beyond it, I'm beyond it.
I know a lot of people have adopted this recognition that the medical industry considers a healed patient to be a lost customer. And so they continue to pump the prescription medications and these other invasive procedures, etc., to keep people needing to come back for more medicine. And so it's neat.
They have to do it too, because they may lose their license if they don't. And these doctors have never had any education in whole food plant-based in their entire career. Unless they study on their own, they don't know it. That surgeon who was so good that I worked with, she was terrific. But she didn't know whole food plant-based. And You just have to. You either have to go on your own or find an alternative doctor like Dr. Furman that I mentioned. He's still active. Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. Cole and Campbell are now in their 90s and still going strong, but not having practices anymore. Dr. Dean Ornish is another one. He started reversing heart disease more than 40 years ago. He's still practicing. And then when that was established totally, in fact, I wonder if people know Medicare has to cover his clinics. That was done through Congress during Bill Clinton's era. And then he worked on cancer and saw that you could reverse cancer. Diabetes, type 2 diabetes is one of the easiest chronic diseases to reverse. He established that, and many other people have as well. Dr. Neil Barnard, yeah. He's one that for more than 30 years has been reversing diabetes. I could go on and on. There is so much out there, but you are never going to learn it on the medical establishment, not because they're horrible people, because they don't have the education and they're pressured by the pharmaceuticals and the AMA, Medical Association. If they're not doing this, they could lose their license. But so many medical people are now into the alternative that where they used to be just treated horribly, really scary stuff. There's too many of them now. So the FDA and all of that, they can't keep up with it all. Anyway, I'm getting off, but
it is funny that in all of world history, we have lived off of whole foods, plant-based diets for thousands of years. And it's only within the last 150 years or less, certainly less, that we've embraced this fast food, processed food kind of thing that is seeming to make people sicker and shorten their lifespans.
The Western chronic diseases follow exactly the Western, what they call standard American diet, SAD, the Western diet.
I like that, SAD. I'll have to remember that. I think COVID really opened people's eyes to the need for whole plant-based foods and more healthier lifestyles and things like that. So you're in the right place at the right time at the right offering for that.
It comes down to a simple, basic way that if people understood, it would turn around the climate change. But to do that, they need to read T. Colin Campbell's books. I started reading his books in the 90s. The China Study, and then the book Whole, W-H-O-L-E, and then The Future of Nutrition. He of all people, there are many out there, but he of all people really lay out what happened in the past, what's happening now, and where we're headed in the future. And that last book, The Future of Nutrition, is a must read.
In order to be a coach, did you have to go through any training for that?
Fairly rigorous training.
But you did all that online?
I did.
Okay. Was there a specific organization that helped you get your coaching certificate?
So John Robbins and his son, Ocean Robbins. Food Revolution Network. The Colon organization has a program which I will do at one point. I'm planning to do that also. The Esselstyns have a program. There are a few of them. And Dr. Joel Fergman in San Diego, California, has a program. All based on whole food, plant-based, all very good.
It sounds like you are embracing the idea of being a lifelong learner. If you are wanting to take up all of these classes and continue learning, even at your age, I find that just amazing.
But it comes from something very specific. As a kid, I was dyslexic and nobody picked up on it. I had trouble through school. The only time I did really well being negatively suggestible, which I got from my father, in the 7th grade when they said it's going to be bright kids in one class and the not bright kids in the other class. That year I made honor roll all year. just to prove that they were wrong.
Wow.
That kind of thing. I finally, when I was in my 40s, discovered that I was dyslexic when I had to do filing for somebody and they could never find what I filed. Here's a quick example. If it started with SAW, SAW, I'd filed it under W, WAS, was. And when I realized I was dyslexic, it was like, oh my God, that's why I've never been able to balance my checkbook. I would go over and over the math and it would be correct. I had no idea I was reversing the numbers, even vertically. I might put a 9 instead of a 6 or vice versa. So I trained my brain. This is going back to that theme of knowing. I knew I was bright enough. I knew that there was something I was missing, but I never knew what it was. When I discovered I was dyslexic, I actually, and people who work with dyslexia find this amazing. I actually, now they call it rewiring the brain. There's actually a term for it. I taught my brain how to stop being dyslexic and to cue me in. If I started to make a reversal, it'd go, oh, and I would change it. And gradually I lost being dyslexic.
That
was
fascinating. And you trained yourself to do this.
Yeah. And that sort of knowing is what I'm talking about. It can't come from thinking. It can't come from, I think kids now have a harder time because they're so keyed into television and internet and all of this stuff. They're being fed information at an amazing rate. I hope they still have the opportunity to sense what is inside them, what is going on inside, in their heart, in their life, in their mind, in their body-mind connection, whatever you want to call it.
That sounds like an ideal mission for somebody over 50 to help encourage kids to do that. Super. Do you have any book or do you have any desire to write a book in the future?
People have said that to me many times. You should write a book. I never have. If I had somebody I could talk it out to and let them write the book, I would do that. Have a ghostwriter.
Okay, very good. If people wanted to get in touch with you, how could they connect with you?
They can email me at Alpher, my first initial last name, BALP as in Peter, HER.532 at gmail.com. They can go to my Shaklee website, Shaklee.com, and put in Barbara Alpher. They could call me at 575-649-9739. And I text as well as call. Texting is probably easier. I'd love to hear from people if they have questions or.
Wonderful. I appreciate you talking to me today, Barbara. I really do. Is there any last minute advice that you had for people to help live a more satisfying and fulfilling life?
I go right back to listen to your intuitions. Listen to that sense of inner knowing. And pay attention to it.
And follow through on it. Very good.
You don't even have to follow through on it. When that is very clear, things open up and you just go with it.
Super. Thank you again for your time today. This has been fascinating and I really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Thanks, Greg. And thanks that you do this. I love listening to your podcasts and I appreciate being on one of them. Thanks.
Thank you. Barbara Alpher is a remarkable woman who completely reinvented her life at the age of 72. After her mother passed away, Barbara hit the road in her travel trailer. What followed was a 12-year adventure during which Barbara found peace by spending time in quiet, beautiful places most travelers never see. She also discovered that the real joy of work camping came from serving others and being a contribution wherever she went. Along the way, Barbara learned lessons about trusting her intuition, living simply, and staying curious. She discovered that life's greatest rewards often come when you listen to that quiet inner knowing and take a leap into the unknown. That mindset carried her through every challenge, from navigating unfamiliar roads to surviving breast cancer later in life. Now in her mid-80s, Barbara continues to live with purpose as a Shaklee distributor and plant-based wellness coach. She shares her passion for whole food, plant-based living, which helped her recover from cancer without chemotherapy or radiation. Her story is a testament to courage, curiosity, and the power of following your heart no matter your age. People can connect with Barbara by email at balpher.532@gmail.com or check out her Shaklee website. There's a link in the show notes. If you'd like to start living a more meaningful life, I encourage you to download our free guide to finding purpose, which is available at www.forwardfrom50.com. I'll have another inspirational interview on the next episode of the Forward from 50 podcast. Thanks for listening, and if you like the show, please consider leaving a review wherever you download the episodes.